Dubrow Suspicion Files.
You know, there are some stories that go so viral, we feel like we know them inside and out. The story of the Miami zombie? It's definitely one of them. But what if I told you the reality of what happened on that causeway is far stranger and honestly way more tragic than the story we all bought into? Okay, let's rewind the clock to 2012. For a few really terrifying weeks, it seriously felt like the zombie apocalypse might actually be starting. And ground zero? Miami, Florida. So to really understand what happened, we first have to go back and piece together the horrifying story just as it was first reported. You know, the version that went absolutely viral and created this zombie myth in the first place. Okay, so picture this. It's a busy Memorial Day weekend, middle of the afternoon. You're on the MacArthur Causeway, this huge road connecting Miami to Miami Beach, and it is just jammed with holiday traffic. For 18 brutal minutes, a naked man named Rudy Eugene attacks a homeless man, Ronald Popo. I mean, the sheer fact that this went on for so long, in broad daylight, it's one of the most shocking parts of this whole thing. And the attack was savage. Eugene actually used his teeth as a weapon, chewing away a staggering 80% of Ronald Popo's face. He was left with these catastrophic, life-altering injuries. And it was that specific detail, the cannibalism, that was the spark that lit the whole zombie fire. Almost right away, law enforcement stepped in and gave everyone an explanation that would basically define the entire story. The president of the Miami Police Union, Armando Aguilar, he gets on camera and speculates that this new terrifying superdrug, he calls it the new LSD or bath salts, was to blame. And just like that, that became the story, before any evidence was even looked at. It was a simple, terrifying answer for something that felt completely incomprehensible. Okay, so here's the big question, right? Why did this bizarre bath salt zombie story get so instantly and widely believed? This really gets to the heart of how we jump to conclusions. And the answer, it turns out, has less to do with the crime itself and a lot more to do with the culture at the time. I mean, you gotta remember what 2012 was like. Our culture was completely soaked in zombies. The Walking Dead was one of the biggest shows on TV, zombie apocalypse memes were everywhere online, and even the CDC, the actual CDC, had put out this tongue-in-cheek zombie preparedness guide. It's like the script for a zombie movie was already written in our collective minds, it just needed a real-life event to latch onto. And this is where the police brought in this term, excited delirium, to explain Eugene's incredible strength and why he didn't seem to react to being shot. Now, this is a super controversial diagnosis. It's not even recognized by the American Medical Association, by the way. But it gave this sort of medical-sounding reason for a monster, instead of making us have a much harder conversation about mental health. All right, so that's the story we were all told. But now, let's look at the actual forensic evidence, because this is where the whole neatly packaged zombie story starts to seriously fall apart. When you actually break down the timeline, minute by minute, you start seeing these little details that just don't add up. The biggest one? Eugene's delusion. He didn't just attack Popo out of the blue. He first accused him of stealing his Bible, a Bible that, well, didn't exist. Now that doesn't sound like a drug trip, right? That sounds like a complete and total psychotic break. So pretty quickly, you've got these two totally different theories forming. On one side, you have the simple, terrifying bath salts theory, which gives us an external monster we can all be scared of. And on the other, you have the complex and tragic psychosis theory, which points to an internal human crisis, where every single bizarre action could actually be explained by a catastrophic mental breakdown. So, with the entire world watching, everybody was waiting for one thing: the toxicology report. This was supposed to be the final piece of the puzzle, the scientific proof of a terrifying new drug that turns people into monsters. And believe me, the medical examiner ran exhaustive tests. They sent samples out to a special lab, they screened for everything you could possibly imagine. Bath salts, synthetic drugs, LSD, cocaine, PCP, you name it, they looked for it. So, what did they find? Well, get ready for this, because this was the bombshell that blew the whole story wide open. In a stunning reversal that just completely contradicted the global narrative, the Miami-Dade medical examiner announced the only drug in Rudy Eugene's system was cannabis. No bath salts, no new superdrug, just marijuana. I mean, that one single fact changes everything, doesn't it? It forced everyone to throw out the monster story we'd all been told and start dealing with a much harder, much more uncomfortable question. What if the monster we were all so terrified of just wasn't real? So when you piece it all together, the real story that emerged from the evidence is just so much more tragic. Rudy Eugene wasn't a monster. He was a man with a documented history of mental instability with this growing, intense religious fixation. And the victim, Ronald Popo, he wasn't just some random prop in a horror story. He was a man with his own tragic backstory, a gifted student who had completely fallen through society's cracks. This wasn't a zombie attack. It was a tragic collision of two lives, both failed by our healthcare and social systems. And this is the wildest part of the whole story. The facts didn't seem to matter. Even with the toxicology report, that initial panic, that false story, it was used to pass actual state and federal laws banning bath salts. And politicians were explicitly citing the Miami zombie attack, an incident that those drugs had absolutely nothing to do with. So what you end up with are these two completely different realities existing side by side. The narrative reality gave us a simple, terrifying zombie monster caused by some external threat that we could fight with drug bans. But the medical reality, that gave us a complex, tragic, mentally ill man, a story of internal failure that points to a desperate need for healthcare reform. And that really leaves us with one big, uncomfortable question to chew on. Why do we, as a society, seem to prefer the story of the monster over the story of the madman? Maybe it's because a monster is just simpler. It's an external evil, something straightforward. A monster is so much easier to kill.